Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah. I guess James Robbins is here. I am super excited to have this conversation with him. And we know that the conversation that we're going to have is going to be amazing. James, tell the people who you are and what it is that you do and how you can help them.
Thanks, Tammy, for having me here. How would I describe myself? First off, I'm a dad of three college students, and I grew up on a small cattle ranch in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. But now I run a company teaching leadership and culture in the workplace. Basically, I help people have better bosses.
Wow. Wow. And share with us, how did you get from where you started to there?
Yeah, my road, as I'd mentioned off air, I wanted to become a film director because I love stories. And then I ended up going into ministry, which I didn't expect. And I became a preacher for a lot of years, which in a sense was teaching people stories. There was definitely a lot of cool things about that. I enjoyed helping people, and it was felt very purposeful. But at some point, even a high purpose job can start to feel a little bit out of alignment. And that's what happened to me. And I ended up following in John Maxwell's footsteps, and I began a leadership development company. And so I have been doing that for quite a few years now. And it's a different way of helping people, but I enjoy it.
I think it's amazing because the thing is, all of the tools that you got from being in ministry, I'm sure this is what you use in there because there's so many lessons that we learn through Jesus's life. One,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
love God Maxwell.
I was going to say the interesting thing was when I first started venturing into the corporate world, I felt so insecure because I thought, what do I know? What do I know about leadership? And I even hid parts of my background. Like I would just tell people, oh, I was in non for profit. And I was very careful with that. Like really wasn't authentic at all. And it wasn't until time that I realized, wait a minute, I actually know a lot because there's one thing about if you ever lead in it doesn't have to be in a religious organization, it could be any kind of not for profit, especially when you're dealing with volunteers and you can't necessarily fire someone and you can't use all these levers that sometimes people use in the corporate world.
Yeah.
You really have to learn what makes people tick, what's going to get them to do something. You
Yes.
really got to be able to sell vision. And so I've been doing that for years and years. And in fact, I had a chance to sit down with John Maxwell for lunch years later. And I asked him that whole thing. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, when you basically was saying, when you cut your teeth in something like ministry, you just a lot more leadership than you give yourself credit for. So, anyways, that was part of my path, filled with insecurity at the beginning. What do I know here? Only to realize, man, I know a lot. And I think that's true of most people. Most people know more than they give themselves credit for. They just got to trust themselves.
What was the thing that you credit for helping you to make that shift? Because you're right, that's difficult when you're doing one thing and then you shift over to something else because you're looking at them in different boxes and different compartments when it really is just a transition or just a move. So what helped you to make that shift? And was it something that took a long time or did it just all of a sudden appear, something drop down in your spirit and just let you know? What was that? What did that look like for you?
It definitely wasn't instant. And I think a lot of people will relate to the idea you're going along in your career, or maybe you're running a business, but something doesn't feel right. You're not quite sure what it is. And you think maybe it's just the role I'm in, or maybe I need a vacation or something. And you try out those things, but then you come back and there's something missing, but you can't put your finger on it. And I like the quote by Dr. James Hollis, who said, when the path is right, the energy is there. And so you can flip that around and think, when the path's not right, it's really hard to get that energy. So what happened for me, I was in ministry, but over time, I started to feel less and less excited about it. And it wasn't so much the work, it was the organization I was part of started to just get more, I felt like rules based. And I started to feel like I was in a sales corporation, to be honest, and that didn't resonate with me. So,
Gonna say you were.
for sure, one of the challenges, though, when you're working in like a high purpose place, it could be even in healthcare, when you think about changing, there, at least for me, there was all this guilt to push through because not a week would go by that somebody wouldn't say to me like, wow, I bet you're happy all the time because you just have the best job in the world and it must be so amazing. And I would fake smile at that point and go, "Yeah, for sure." And then I would beat myself up for thinking, come on, James, you should be more grateful. And then, of course, if it's a religious organization, then you can add the God factor on top of that. You think, I can't quit this. And in fact, I even had a boss tell me, he told me, you can't quit the ministry. And he said, God put you there and only God can take you out. And I was like, wait, how does that happen? But I was young. And so I really felt trapped. But it was during that time that honestly, I got really sick. And
That'll do it.
yeah, I went through all these tests and they're like, nothing's wrong with you. But I was like on my back for months and something had happened. I thought, oh, I've broken my body or something. It was so bizarre. And you would think, oh, okay, that must have done it for you. But no, I kept soldier on. And finally, I took a sabbatical one time. And it's one of those things you do in education or for kids. But I came back from that. I don't know how long I was gone, a month or something, not long. But I remember walking back and back onto who's actually the church grounds and rounded the corner to my office. And I just looked and I just had this sinking feeling. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be here. And that was the sign for me, like, this is a job now and this should be a calling. And for me, in that moment, it wasn't. And so I was like, all right, I started making my plan for an exit ramp.
So in that, did you feel like you were disappointing God?
In that moment, no, because by then I'd had enough time to process through that, talk to mentors. Like I said, even John Maxwell, I sat down with him and I said, how did you know? And he had a very similar moment. He was on a plane on his way back to where he was serving in ministry, and he'd just been speaking at some company, and he just said, oh, I just felt like, oh, I don't want to go back. I knew, so by then I'd had enough where I'd realized like, okay, it's okay to do this. And this brings up a side point about permission to live our lives. So many people are waiting for permission. They're waiting for a green light, whether from the cosmos, whether from the universe, whether from God. And I need the green light. And one thing I've learned over time is that permission to live your life is not going to be given to you. It really has to be seized. You have to take it. And trust that the good decisions you've made all throughout your life are going to continue to guide you. So unless you're doing something obviously stupid and wrong, which you're not, then everything else I think there's just a lot of potential open doors for you.
Yes, I agree with that because I was laughing because I thought that's exactly the same way that it happened for me as far as my careers. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do that. And the same type of thing started happening. I got sick and when nobody can do anything, there was labs are good, blasey, all this stuff. And all the tests and everything's good. My stomach was hurting me every single day, all this stuff. And nobody could ever find anything wrong. So to me, that meant that this was energetic and I needed to figure it out.
How did you make that shift?
I really just started diving deep and just talking to God, talking to my body and my cell and my nervous system, and also really diving into some of the things, the reasons why. I found that I had specific reasons why I was hanging on to this thing, this dead thing. This thing was dead. It's time for me to go. It's time for me to not do this anymore. I'd done it for 35 years and it was just time. And in the process of it, because it wasn't overnight, just like you said, in the process of it, I started just diving into those why and going deep and just digging for myself. The same way I work with clients, just digging into it. Because a lot of times what I learned is that you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times you don't even know why. You know what I mean? It takes you to really dig to see why this is such a stronghold for you. When I suffered with that, oh, wow. So as you made this shift and as you decided, okay, I'm good. God is good with me. I'm good with God. It's time for me to pivot and go in this other direction. that when I look at it, it looks logical, because I've been to ministry school. I studied all the stuff and things. And I know how all the leadership principles are really in the Bible. So I understand that. So I can see how this would be like really like a lateral thing for you. And so what I want to know is, where do you see yourself going with this? And then I want you to talk about your new book.
I think for me, it's been a number of years now since I made that pivot, and it I really had to reframe, in a sense, the new direction. So if we rewind a bit, I started my I started my leadership development company while I was still in ministry. It was a side hustle to help pay the bills and things like that. So I was doing it and ministry. But to leave ministry, it's a little bit like, if you're anyone who's listening and you're not familiar with something like ministry, imagine you're doing research to cure cancer, and maybe even you're curing people. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. And yet you're like, yeah, but I'm helping people in a really profound way. And how can I step away from that? And what I have found, Tammy, is that it's not even so much going to something new, it's leaving what we're in, whatever that is. It could be a relationship, could be a job, it could be a career, could be a city, to leave. And once you leave, all of a sudden the doors begin to open up, like you figure everything out.
Yes.
The problem is we want it figured out before we leave. We want to, and obviously we got to mitigate risk, but still, it's just it's difficult to leave anything. And where's this going? I think even in my own company, what started out very corporate, like leadership principles and do these 5 things, and here's how you hold people accountable. So we teach all that, and all those are necessary skills. But now where my work is going is actually bringing more of the spiritual back in to my work. So not religious. When I say spiritual, like helping people understand
Yes.
they do have an inner life. There is energy. Your body, it does send you messages. There is a path for you. And so really the new book that's coming out is so different than my first book. My first book has done well, was to my surprise back then, but it's very corporate leadership. But this one,
Or like John Maxwell.
exactly. Anyone who reads both my books are not going to think it's the same author, because the new book is so much about when you're out of alignment with your inner life, your soul, your psyche, whatever word you want to use. It's longing to have a conversation with you. And that's what the book is about, is listening to that inner voice and then carving out the life you're really meant to live.
It's all about connection. And what I feel like is that it was your evolution. And that's why the books are different, because you're different. But it feels amazing. And it's probably, to be honest with you, is what people are looking for. Because I believe that, and I'm a person that I was raised in the church, but I tell people now, I'm like, I just believe in God. I just believe in God. I don't want to do all the dogma. I don't want to do all the stuff, and I don't want to do all that. I just want to connect with the source, with God, with the one. And that's an evolution.
It takes a while for you to figure out what you really believe, to separate, like, what do I really, not what do my parents believe, what does my pastor tell me, or whatever religion you might go to, but, or how you were raised. But at some point, and the book gets into this, is this idea of there is a piece of us that needs to individuate, that needs to figure out, who am I? And what do I actually think? Like, I know what my friends all think, even about political issues or social issues, regardless of what anyone thinks, is what do you think? Doesn't mean that you got to go tell everyone and cause chaos, but what do you think? And on the heels of that, what do you want? That's actually more important. What do you want? And that's actually a difficult question for people to answer, because they'll think, oh, I don't know, what am I allowed to want? It's like, no, what do you want?
That permission.
Exactly.
And when you said that, I thought, wow, because I talk a lot about that. I did a whole playlist on YouTube about permission, because it started coming to me, and I was like, people are waiting for permission. And sometimes that's the work that we do as coaches and healers or whatever. Give people permission. I do it all the time. Tell people, I say, you can do such and such a thing. And they're like, I can do that? I'm like, yeah, you can do it. And to me, I'm like, that's not a big deal. But when we think about it, we all have times like that where we had to give ourselves permission. We had to allow ourselves and we had to get in alignment with what we wanted and what we desired. Yeah, that's to me, that's huge. Yes, give yourself permission. Allow yourself to be, do, and have. Yeah.
And what I find is that when we get to these crossroads in life, we're thinking, which way should I go? Oh man, at least for me, I can ruminate over the decision, agonize over it. But what has helped me, what I've learned in the past is when you can actually tune in to that inner life that you have, it's that deep down part of you that actually knows the way. It knows what's best for you. The problem is it's scary to give it the podium. Have you ever been at a wedding and then the one crazy uncle gets up to the mic and was like, oh no. Sometimes the inner life is like that. Don't give them the mic because what are they going to say? And I remember there was one time in my life I was really wrestling with, which would have been one of the biggest decisions. And what I had to do is I had to get away from where I was from, my environment, and I went out to nature. I went out into the mountains. And then I just said to myself, okay, what do you want? And don't judge the answer. I just need you to be 100% honest. As soon as I framed it like that, the answer came out and it was scary. But I knew, okay, that's what I got to do. And I made the decision on the spot right there and blinders on, pedal to the metal. But it's in those moments, right, where when it's so hard for us to get quiet and tune in, it's really hard for me, right? ADHD and my mind's always going a million miles an hour, like just to slow down. But I'm telling you, it's those moments. And I don't know if it's easier for women or for men. I'm not sure. I just know it's not easy for me, but I know there's always the answer. I just need to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. And that's really what we all need to do. And that's one of the things that I talk to people all the time about. I say, we just can tune in and slow down because what I've learned is that many of us, we don't even know how to do none of that. We're not connected with God. Hell, we're not connected with ourselves. And so that's the first thing we have to do. It's just like you said, slow down. And for me, it's been like, slow down and trust. Because this journey that I've been on with this long COVID has been just crazy. But it's been a slow down and a trust journey. And it's one that even through everything, I'm grateful for. Because it did do that for me. Like I had no choice. I had to slow it. Oh. And I'm like you, my mind can go 24/8. Like people are like, I can't meditate my mind. I can't quiet my mind. I said, honey, it ain't even about that. I was like, I can't quiet my mind either. But like ever. I said, it's about allowing the thoughts to come, but not grabbing a hold of them. Because they're going to come. Just don't focus on them. Focus on your breathing, all these things. And so that is, to me, that is so powerful and important.
When one way to look at it, imagine you're trying to hear the answer to something, but you're on the field of a full football stadium and there's 80,000 people and they're all shouting and cheering. And that's just the noise of life. And then meanwhile, there's the band that's down on the field and they're so loud. And that's just the fears that are there. But the answer is like the little old guy that takes care of the field after the game's over and he's away in some little shack. But you got to get there. You got to get away from all of that. And it's, at least for me, that takes time. I can't just do that in a moment. I've seen people who are just on the spot can be so in tune with their intuition there. But my point is that I think it's difficult to discern what's the inner part of me saying or what's just my fear saying. Because I've also learned about myself that there's certain situations, my pattern is just an escape hatch? Where's the escape hatch? And I can think, oh, that my inner life is telling me I just need to get out of the situation. That's not necessarily the truth. My fears are telling me to get out of that situation. But is that what I need to do? And that's why I say it. To me, it takes that extra step to to push past those noises and go, what's really going to be best?
Because you want to get out of your mind. You want to get into your body. That's the major thing. And it's like, when I learned that, you just get out of your mind because your mind is a monkey mind. Drop into your body. Connect with your soul and your solar plexus, the power centers, and even your creativity center, the sacral. But it's people don't know how to do that. And a lot of times, because it takes time, like what you were saying, people don't want to do that either because they want everything in a microwave. They want to drive through. You drive through, and if they take 3 minutes, you're like, it's a drive through. Why am I waiting? Why am I waiting 5 minutes? Isn't this fast food? And that's how people want to do their life.
I'm curious to know what you would say when someone asks you, how do I know what's anxiety and fear and what's actual my intuition and soul? I'd love to hear how you answer that question.
I would say that if it's something that brings up fear, something that brings up judgment, then it is anxiety. If it's something that is going to be expansive and it's going to help you, then it's your soul.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's do this. Share the name of your book, where people can get it. Then I have one more question that I have to ask everyone.
Fantastic. Thanks for asking about the book. The book is titled The Call to Climb, and it's written in a fable format. It's basically about this character named Riley who stumbles into this remote village in the Bolivian Andes, only to find out that they've been waiting for her. And basically, it's this special place where there's a mountain that calls you to climb when you're out of alignment with your soul. And it calls you to climb so that you might get away from the noise and distractions and sit down with your soul for the first time and listen. And so that's what it is. It's obviously a metaphor, but the whole story is a lot of fun, covers a lot of things, everything from overcoming your fears and limiting beliefs to even unburdening your life and forgiveness. I'm really excited about it. It comes out August 5th, and you can get it, I think, anywhere that there's a major online retailer, Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
And is it on Audible?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, and is it on Audible?
It will be on Audible. It took a little while to figure out who's going to narrate, and I went back and forth with the publisher on that, but I think we finally have someone. So it will be on Audible. Let's see if it comes out at the same time.
It's all right. As long as I know it'll be on there, I'll look for it. Because that's how I do my books these days.
You would not believe how many people have told me, will it be on Audible? Because I listen to all my books now, which I get that for sure.
Yeah. For me, it was a shift because I like to read and I also write. When I started dealing with this long COVID, that was a shift for me because it was hard to retain information reading it. I'm like, it would take me sometimes 3 times reading something. So I found that if I listen to it, it's a little better. And the thing is, that was never before. Like before, I've always listened to stuff I would prefer to read, but started taking me so long, and then I couldn't remember, I couldn't retain. I was like, you know what? Let me just listen. So I've been doing that. So that was like a shift for me that I wasn't really looking forward to. Here we are, and it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, well, I need Audible for you.
I appreciate that. So my question is that I ask everyone is, if there was something in the world that you could change, what would that be and why?
If there was something in the world I could change, it would be for everyone to honestly see their intrinsic worth, for everyone to see the divine signature, which is at their fingertips. The fact that every single person has a different set of fingerprints, even identical twins, it's because you're here for a reason. There's a destiny for you, and it's a good one, and it's not doing harm and evil to people. And if people would see that, I think the world would be a lot better place.
I love that. It's very similar to the girl that was before you. Typically, I get different answers for that. I think I've had about 200 interviews and I get different ones. But I like that one because I believe that if we could do that, then so much would shift in this world.
Yes.
So, any last words, and then let the people know where they can connect with you the best.
My last words would be thank you, Tammy, for having me on your show. Thanks for everybody who listened in. You can find out more about the book at the website iwillclimb.com, and that'll eventually lead you back to my leadership site. But yeah, iwillclimb.com, and find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Love to connect. Always love to connect with people. But again, thanks for tuning in. If you're still listening at this point, thanks for sticking with me.
Yes, we appreciate you. It was so amazing. I've enjoyed this. I love your evolution because, like I said, I was raised in the church, so I know, did ministry school and all that, and had about faith, I guess about 12 years or so ago. I just was like, I know there's something different. It's something else. I'm like, some of this is not God to me. I was like, I can't do the hate. I can't do all of that. And so I was like, I need to just pull back and connect to source, to the one true God. All that. I was like, that's what I got to do. So that's where I got with that. And on top of it, the career shift was like, I think they had been calling me to shift careers for about 10 or 12, 15 years. And I kept doing like you. I was like, oh, I got a little sick. Okay. Fibromyalgia. Oh, okay. That's just stress, basically. So I was like, all right, I just have to do that. I'll deal with this, take these pills, whatever. And then something else came up, same type of thing. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get over that. Then every time. And finally, ding, 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 the light bulb went off and said, you just can't do this. This is not for you to do. You help people and you enjoy helping people, but not in this way. There's another way. Just being able to find that has been so fulfilling.
Good for you. It's great.
Listening. Yeah. And listening to your story has been amazing. I love it. And I'm sure that the people that are watching are really get something out of it.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are so welcome. It's been great. I appreciate your time, your energy, your story. It's been awesome. I can't wait to read your book. I was just talking to James Robbins. That was such a phenomenal interview. His story about coming from being a pastor to running peak performance and James Matthews style training. It was just such an amazing interview. And I hope that everyone has enjoyed it. If you are looking for some support and community, I would love to offer you to join my membership, Remember Who the Fuck You Are. In there where we are remembering who we are. We're doing 2 Zoom calls a month. There are resources in the community and just a safe space to land, especially if you are growing and listening to your intuition and wanting to learn more. So join me at Remember Who the Fuck You Are in my Stand store above. Stand store, Intuitive Tammy. I would love to see you in there. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And thank you for all of your comments because I do try to get back to the comments. So this show will be premiering in a couple of weeks. So make sure that you are listening and that you are following so that you will learn more. So have a wonderful rest of your day, night, weekend, whatever it is. And thank you so much for watching. Bye now.